Rain pounded the quiet streets of Cedarville as David, a single father juggling 2 jobs, struggled to keep his old sedan moving through the storm. His daughter, Lily, slept in the back seat, wrapped in a thin blanket, oblivious to the chaos outside. David's day had been long, his pockets nearly empty, and yet, as he rounded a corner, he saw her, a woman stranded on the roadside, soaked, shivering, and waving frantically. Without hesitation, he pulled over, heart racing. "Are you okay?" he asked, offering his jacket. She smiled weakly, gratitude shining through her exhaustion. "Thank you. I didn't know what I would do," she murmured. David helped her into the car, ignoring the protest of his own fatigue, and drove her to the nearest cafe to call for assistance. Over hot coffee and shared stories, David didn't recognize the woman as Judge Margaret Collins, the strict legal mind known across the state. They laughed, talked about life, and for a moment the storm outside seemed distant. As he dropped her off at her hotel, he waved, unaware that this simple act of kindness would ripple far beyond the night. The judge, touched by his selflessness, watched him disappear into the rain-soaked streets, already considering a decision she'd soon have to make, a decision that could change David's life forever. David drove home, tired but satisfied, thinking only of Lily and the warmth of helping someone in need. Little did he know, his compassion tonight would soon meet destiny in the courtroom. The next morning, David woke to the harsh reality of bills, overdue notices, and the constant worry of providing for Lily. Between his 2 jobs and late-night shifts, life felt like a relentless storm, but that night's encounter with the stranded woman lingered in his mind. He couldn't shake her smile, the quiet gratitude that had seemed to light up the dreary cafe. Weeks later, David faced a challenge far bigger than rain-soaked streets, a legal dispute over unpaid rent that threatened to evict him and Lily. The notice had arrived suddenly, leaving him panicked and desperate. He attended the hearing, his heart pounding, convinced the judge would side with the landlord. His hands shook as he explained his struggles, the long hours, and his devotion to his daughter. Judge Margaret Collins presided over the case with her usual stern demeanor. David didn't recognize her at first. How could he? The poised, commanding figure in the black robe was the same woman he had helped that rainy night. But as she studied his file, something in her softened. Memories of his kindness, his unselfish gesture in the pouring rain, crept into her mind. She listened carefully to his words, her gaze lingering on him longer than usual. The courtroom was tense, every breath weighted with uncertainty. And then, in a quiet but firm voice, she made a decision, one that shocked everyone present. David's relief was immediate and overwhelming. Tears stung his eyes as he realized the truth. The judge who held his fate had been the woman he had helped without a second thought. The world seemed to tilt, disbelief and gratitude flooding him at once. That night, driving home with Lily laughing in the back seat, David understood a truth he'd always believed: kindness always finds its way back, often in the most unexpected, life-changing ways. In the days following the court decision, David's life slowly began to stabilize. The eviction threat was gone, and for the first time in months, he could breathe. Yet he couldn't help but wonder why the judge had seemed familiar. Something tugged at the back of his mind, a memory of rain, a jacket, a smile. Meanwhile, Judge Margaret Collins returned to her chambers, reflecting on the case. She had seen countless hearings like this one, parents struggling, families on the brink, but something about David's sincerity haunted her. She recalled the night she had been stranded, the cold rain soaking her to the bone, and the man who had stopped without hesitation, offering warmth and comfort without asking anything in return. She realized that he hadn't known who she was, and yet, he had acted purely out of kindness. That act alone had shown a depth of character rare in her courtroom. It was more than compassion, it was integrity, humility, and love, a man willing to sacrifice for his child without expecting recognition. David, unaware of the judge's thoughts, continued his routine, work, care for Lily, and a quiet hope that life would get easier. But a small, unexpected envelope arrived one afternoon, stamped with the courthouse seal. Inside was a letter from Judge Collins herself. She thanked him, not as the defendant from the recent hearing, but as the stranger who had helped her in the storm. She wrote of how his simple gesture had reminded her why she became a judge, to protect, to honor humanity, and to see justice paired with compassion. David's eyes widened, heart pounding. The woman he had helped, without thought of reward, had not only changed his immediate fate, but had left an imprint on his life he would never forget. And in that moment, he realized that acts of kindness, no matter how small, could echo far beyond what the eye could see. David clutched the letter in his hands, staring at Judge Collins' words over and over. The memory of that stormy night came rushing back, the rain, Lily asleep in the back seat, and the shivering woman who had seemed so lost yet suddenly at ease under his care. He never imagined that a simple act of kindness could ripple into something so profound. A week later, the courthouse held another hearing, not for him, but for a community initiative he had quietly supported, a program providing temporary shelter and meals for struggling single parents. Judge Collins, aware of his efforts, personally invited him to speak. Standing at the podium, David saw her in the front row, her eyes warm and encouraging. It was then he realized how much of an impact his small gesture had made, not just on her, but indirectly on countless others. He spoke honestly, his voice steady but full of emotion, sharing the struggles of single parenthood, the challenges of trying to provide while remaining kind, and the hope that small acts could change lives. The room was silent, hanging on every word, until applause erupted. David's heart swelled, not for recognition, but because he understood something profound. Kindness always returns, often in ways we cannot predict. After the hearing, Judge Collins approached him quietly. "David," she said softly, "you reminded me why humanity matters, and you've reminded this community too. Never stop helping, never stop believing in people." Driving home that evening with Lily laughing beside him, David felt a peace he hadn't known in years. The stormy nights, the struggle, the endless fatigue, all of it had led to this. He had learned the truth: compassion is never wasted, and even the smallest gesture can change destinies. And for David and Lily, life was no longer just surviving, it was flourishing, guided by the gentle power of a kind heart.